So you're in your final year of biology diploma, and you've got some more internal assessments to do. So the kind that you're going to do, these IAs, it's the last kind that will be done before the new syllabus comes out. And so your exam will be in May 2015, and they will be assessed using the following criteria. So I wanted to just go through this so you're really clear about what your internal assessments are going to be assessed against. So this is taken from your syllabus, and it talks about the internal assessment criteria. So we have various criteria: design, data collection and processing, conclusion evaluation, manipulative skills, and personal skills. Now this one is already done. You did your personal skills when you were in your Group 4 project. It's only assessed once. That's done and dusted. All the rest are going to be based on what I put onto your form called a PSOW4 form. And I need to see that you have been assessed and in design, data collection and processing, conclusion evaluation. And I will also make an assessment on your manipulative skills. This is how you use the equipment, how you measure, how careful you are in the lab, how you are considerate of others. So when I submit your grade for your IA, I take the personal skills score that's already been done. I figure out what I believe your manipulative skill grade is. These are both out of 6. And then I choose the 2 best design labs that you have done. You could get 6 for each, so that's a maximum of 12. I choose the 2 best data collection and processing and the 2 best conclusion evaluation. So if I've got 2 of these and you've got 6 for each of them, of course you get 12, and 12 here, 12 here, and 12 for these 2. That makes a maximum of 48. Now, I've never given anybody 48, but hopefully you will work really hard to make sure that you get close to 48. Now, if you've done 2 fantastic labs that you have got, you've designed it yourself, that means that I haven't told you what to look at, I haven't told you what your aim is. If you've designed it yourself, if you've collected all the data yourself and you've processed it well, if you've done a good conclusion and evaluation, then I might be able to take 1 lab for all 3 of these assessment criteria. And if you have 2 of these kind of labs, then I may only need to collect 2 in total to get your best scores. Most people, it doesn't work quite like that. There might be 1 really good design with a really good data collection and processing, but the conclusion evaluation you scored very poorly, and so I won't use this score. On another lab, you might have done a fantastic conclusion evaluation, but you were shoddy at the other 2, and so I would only take this score. Now, I look at the labs that Dr. Duffy did, I look at the labs that you're going to do for me, and I will mark them all over again and make sure that I'm absolutely accurate as I can be on each of these scores. I will submit the grade, the number, to the IB, and then they will tell me which of you they would like me to submit the package for. And so normally it's 4 students from a class of our size, and I will be told who I need to send in, and so then I will have to send in all of the labs that you were graded for design, data collection and processing, conclusion evaluation. And they will take my word for it on the manipulative skills and the personal skills. So I want to go through each of the criteria individually and show you, and I know you've seen this 100 times, but how you can get complete, partial, or not at all. So for each of the criteria, it's a similar setup. There are 3 strands, and you could get a complete for each strand, and that obviously makes 6. And of course, I said before, you have 2 designs, so that's 12. If you are able to write a focus problem or research question and identify the relevant variables, you can get a complete on this one. If your problem when you've written your aim is a little fluffy, or if you've only identified some of the variables, you're only going to get partial. And if you really don't identify a problem at all, and you don't identify the variables, of course you get 0. So please look at each of these strands. You really need to control your variables. You should have a table, and I'm going to show you in a minute what the table looks like to show that you can control your variables. And then you can get a complete. This is a very easy place to get complete. And your method needs to be good enough that you could actually collect sufficient relevant data. You need to say that you have enough trials in there. You need to have the right equipment. Be warned that if you have a design that you have taken from the internet, or if you've taken it from a practical lab book that is in the classroom, you cannot use this for design. That is clearly stated in the syllabus, that if it's an off-the-peg design, it's not appropriate to use it for the criteria design. I just wanted to show you this as a student that submitted a lab that they'd really controlled all the variables, and they had shown how the variables could be controlled. Okay, so when you write your method, you ought to have all the different controlled variables and then state how you are going to control them. You don't have to do it in these 2 columns, but be clear about how you're going to control. Okay. This method was not actually used as a design criterion because this lab was a little bit too much off the peg. By that I mean many people have done this experiment and it wasn't changed sufficiently to be used for design. However, the student did show how they controlled the variables very nicely. Data collection and processing is the second criteria. Again, this is the complete, partial, and not at all for the 3 strands. You have to be able to record your raw data very, very clearly. So if you've got qualitative data, and that means not numbers, maybe colors, and you may be able to give some arbitrary units, but it's not measured quantitatively. You should record that too. Make sure you always include units and include your uncertainties where relevant. So make sure you're clear about how to figure out your uncertainties. You need to process it correctly. If you don't do any processing whatsoever and all you do is make a very pretty graph out of your raw data, you won't get any points for that strand. And you have to be able to present that data properly. So again, if you've not actually done any processing, of course, you'll get 0 here too. If you've processed it and calculated some averages or some standard deviations, and then made some mistakes in your processing, you'll get a partial. If you processed it correctly and appropriately, and included your errors and uncertainties, then you can't get anything less than a 2 for that strand. So this student collected their data. They had 3 trials. They recorded their qualitative data and they processed it by calculating an average, which is a rather simplistic way of processing, but it does count. And then they were able to show their data, and it doesn't say whether it was the average data that they'd used, presumably, but they should have said that. That's a mistake. You'll also see that they used some error bars, but they don't say what those mean, so that's also a mistake. However, they did include some uncertainties on their absorbance and on the temperature, so that's good. The last criterion is conclusion and evaluation. Again, complete, partial, not at all for the 3 strands. This is really the place where people seem to fall down and lose points unnecessarily. If you can state a conclusion and you can justify it, which is based on your reasonable interpretation of your data, you need to get it complete. Often I find that people don't even bother to state a conclusion. It's not clear, and I search and I can't find anywhere that they've said their conclusion. So I can't, I end up giving them 0. You need to evaluate your weakness and limitations. It's such an easy thing to do, and there are always weaknesses and limitations in our experiments. Don't just make a list of them though. Make sure that you link them up and say how you would improve it. So these two kind of go together. So as you state that there was a weakness, then say how you would improve it. And if you can put those together, it's really easy peasy for me to give you 2 for those 2 bits too. So I hope that's given you some help in how to do the best internal assessment so that you can get as close to 48 points as possible. And that will be really helpful to have those points in the bank before you go into your exams in May. All the best.